This video is brought to you by ArchiTech Network and our online platform of courses where you can learn from world-class architects working in some of the practices that you can see in these videos. You can learn Grasshopper, Revit, Rhino Inside, Twinmotion, and some of our new courses on AI, and lots more courses that we're delivering over the next year. So please, if you like this video, check out our courses in the link below so we can keep bringing you more content like this.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another ArchiTech tour here in Denmark. We're here with another one of the most famous Danish architecture firms, Henning Larsen. They're obviously super well known for their sustainable architecture, classic Nordic Danish design, mass timber construction, and also opera houses, which they've recently won. We're going to be talking to David Fink. He's the digital manager here at Henning Larsen. They've been doing some really cool work with gamification of sustainability LCA tools, also heavy use of computation. So we're going to be talking to him about all of these things. But without any further ado, let's jump into it and take a look. All right, guys, we are here with David from Henning Larsen. David, you're the digital manager here in Henning Larsen office. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
we're super excited to see what you guys are working on. I know this is your team in the background and your crew, but maybe if you explain a little bit about how big are you guys now? What other offices do you have in Denmark or anywhere else?
Yeah, in Henning Larsen globally, we're around 650 people, I believe. And in this office, this is the largest office, we're about a little over 200 that sit here.
Okay, big size office.
So we're a fairly large office, and been in this location for a while. And we have the top 3 floors of this building.
Yeah.
So we have studios on this floor and the floor above. And then we have meeting rooms in our canteen on the top floor.
Cool, well, we're excited to see it.
And we're fairly mixed. We're architects, landscape architects, urban designers. We do interiors, we do signage, and lighting as well.
Cool. And this is your, what do you call yourself? The digital design team, DT team?
Yeah, I would call this the computational design and sustainability team.
Okay.
So we do computational design, a lot of sustainability analysis, environmental analysis, LCA, and pretty much anything to help the production of the projects happens in this corner here. Yeah,
I like that you guys have your own wall of stuff. We've got generative design, climate, some material.
Yeah,
super nice.
We're a digital group, but sometimes you need a little bit of analog to kind of show what you can do.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult to find these things online. Yeah, in the office we have a few industrial PhDs running right now. We have one looking at mycelium as a
I was going to say
for construction materials.
Just for the audience, if you don't know what mycelium is, it's essentially mushrooms, right?
Yeah, this is a giant mushroom plate that's been baked. So the mushroom is not active anymore, so it can get wet and it's not going to start to grow.
And you can use that for insulation, right?
We use it for insulation, ceiling panels, and any other uses where you kind of want that stability. And I think they're also trying to take a look at the kind of the raw look of the mycelium in this situation.
That's quite nice.
And then we also have another industrial PhD looking at 3D printing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to see how we can optimize the use of concrete and with 3D prints to just minimize the amount of carbon in the building by reducing the amount of concrete used.
Is the concrete any special or low carbon or anything like that? Or
I don't think these particular use cases are low carbon or anything, but I think it's the critical part of 3D printing is the flow of the concrete out of the print head.
Yeah.
So it can't be too thin, it can't be too thick. And then it's also trying to find out what the right mix is, and then also experimenting with colors as well.
And of course, you got a bit of mass timber.
Yeah, I think right now mass timber is.
Yeah, you guys are
doing a lot of mass timber right now.
Very on it, which is beautiful.
And other organic materials. So it's not only timber, but we're also looking at using hay bales for construction as well as prefabricated elements.
Very
so
cool.
We have one project that we're working on in Nordhavn right now. I think it'll be one of the largest timber constructions in Denmark.
Yeah, in Nordhavn?
Yeah.
That's where we're staying.
So you'll see it right there. Right now it's covered in white plastic, most of it, but you can see a little bit behind the scenes and see some of the timber construction.
Okay.
And that particular project is not 100% timber construction. It's a hybrid. So it's a mix of steel, concrete, and timber.
I see. Get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And then we also have a sample here. This is also rammed earth. So we're really trying to do some experimentation with different types of materials.
Yeah.
Trying
rammed earth, timber, 3D printing, mycelium, and a bit of cork.
Yeah, a bit of cork. I think this was also milled cork plates to try and get a texture on the outside.
Very fitting. I feel like this is something you guys are working on a lot, like these bio-based materials.
Yeah, we do a lot with materials. We have a woman here who has a PhD in materials, and she's really pushing sustainability and LCA as well.
Awesome.
Material passports. Yeah, sure. This is kind of our tree, the shrine, back to green materials, trying to grow the tree in the office. But this building was actually a department store at one point.
Oh, really?
So now we have the supermarket on the ground floor, a gym on the second floor, and then we've taken over the top 3 floors. So we've actually cut down through the top floors of the building to open the space up. So this has become like the central kind of gathering space of the office.
Wow.
And Henning Larsen, who founded the office around a little over 60 years ago, he's known as the master of light. And I think the skylights are really kind of a tribute to the way that he looked at the world and the way that he thought of using light as a tool, as part of architecture.
It's very nice to like 4 quadrants and how they kind of sit together.
Yeah, it really kind of really opens up the space.
Yeah. So this is your central space, then you have just different teams working. You've got like a model shop I can kind of see through there.
Yeah. Yeah, the office is divided up into project teams. So we try to keep the project teams together, and as the projects change, the office moves around. So it's a dynamic office.
Yeah. And yeah, what about the tree? Give us a...
Yeah.
I like it's like a...
Yeah, I
it's
think
still molting a bit.
I'm always concerned about the tree is dying, but there is a guy that comes in once a week and takes care of the tree and waters it and clips it and shakes all the dead leaves off. But sometimes the leaves fall off by themselves.
It's a very nice touch there.
So it manages to survive. And then I think on this wall here, we can see some of our examples of projects we've completed and some also other alternate uses of materials.
Yeah.
So here we have also more uses of 3D printing.
Wow, with like rebar.
With rebar embedded inside. And then also we have an example like this where we're actually 3D printing with clay.
Wow.
So you can really get a very fine 3D print out of it.
Wow. That's super fine, that one.
And then we've also been looking in our model shop even to reuse materials. So this model here is actually reused samples and construction waste that we've turned into 3D models from within our model shop, just to try the exploration. Can we also kind of push that to how we represent our projects?
Yeah.
So not only
That's
in the
cool.
buildings that we build, but also how we represent them.
It's nice you can do something with all the samples you collect, mash them up and make models from them.
Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty unique approach. I think the output is a little unpredictable with sometimes, but I think that you kind of helps us walk the walk.
Yeah, yeah. That's very cool.
And then we've also had a series of classes in the office. This is called Unboxing Carbon.
Okay.
So actually we've gone out and we've tried to teach people in the offices and other companies about carbon and how different materials have different amounts of embedded carbon, embodied carbon in them.
Yeah.
So I think that this has also been a huge success. It's been really a great way of opening people's eyes to how they select materials and how you can, by selecting the right materials, reduce the carbon footprint of projects.
Okay. So how does it work? What's it? Inside each box is a...
Yeah, I think it is, we teach the class and then they go through what the actual embodied carbon is in the different materials, so you can make different choices.
Wow. This is a class you teach in-house?
Yeah, it started in-house and then we actually started teaching it out of the offices as well. So we've actually taught it to several of the offices around Copenhagen.
Ah, that's quite cool. You don't often see that with architects, like collaborating or...
Yeah, I think it was a really good way of reaching out and kind of spreading the word, because we kind of feel this way of reducing the amount of carbon. We just shouldn't keep it to ourselves. It's something we need to share as well.
Yeah. So you got all sorts in here.
This is
Timber, glass.
And I think it comes down to is like, okay, which material would you use? Would you use this linoleum, or would you use this material for a floor covering?
Yeah.
And then what is the carbon impact of making that decision between the two different materials?
Yeah, it's super important. It's one that's hard to quantify as well, because you never really know exactly.
Yeah, you look at a material and you really have no idea what's in it. Like how much carbon? Is this made out of petroleum, or is it made out of natural materials?
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. So these are called your carbon boxes.
Yeah, this is the class is called an unboxing carbon.
Unboxing carbon.
So you start with this box, and then you can, through the leadership in the class, you kind of go through the box and get a better idea of how much embodied carbon there is in different materials. I mean, we consider ourselves a digital office, but it's still nice to have these physical models.
Yeah,
I think it really has a nice touch to.
It really makes an office to see all the models and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think you can have an architectural office without the actual physical models still. We're not quite there yet. So this is a project we have in Gothenburg for a tower.
Very parametric.
This is I think an older project, but this project here we actually just started construction on. This is for a business school in France, where it's also a hybrid timber construction. So the building is predominantly concrete and steel, and then we've also used timber construction for part of the project as well.
Yeah, you guys, I feel like, are becoming masters of timber.
Yeah,
as well.
I think so. I think that we really have we're getting the expertise and how to utilize timber, and we're also learning what you can do and what you can't do, and also how we can push the limits of what you can do with timber.
Yeah. It's also very Scandinavian.
Yeah, but it's actually not very Danish, because we don't have any forests in Denmark, really. We have very small forests. In the 1600s, they cut down all the forests for the Navy.
I didn't know that.
And now most of Denmark is farmland. So a lot of the timber we have comes from other countries. It could come from Austria or Sweden.
There you go. There you go, a little bit of fun facts.
Yeah.
Danish fun facts.
So we have 3D printers, we have laser cutters, and we pretty much build all of the models we have in-house.
Yeah.
So
do you find 3D printing has grown over the last few years, or?
Yeah, I think we keep getting more 3D printers, and it's also, there's some details that you just are much better 3D printing than trying to model.
Yeah.
And I can show you some examples in some of the models that we have of the small details that you can do with a 3D printer that you just can't do.
Yeah.
And I think looking back at my start in architecture is now the interns have it really easy.
Yeah.
With the laser cutters and the 3D printers. It's like they don't lose their fingertips anymore.
Yeah. I feel like I just missed the blue foam. Well, I never worked in a firm that had the blue foam kind of like model making.
Yeah.
And then, for example, when I joined Big, it was the moment when they kind of switched to 3D printing, because it was like much more direct model to fabrication. I know some people like the blue foam models, but
but there is something soothing about running the foam through the cutter.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Yeah, but now you have ventilation. When I started, there was no ventilation. You're just breathing the fumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this model just came home. It was out at the Architecture Museum for a while. So, but it's just really an incredible piece of craft.
Yeah, the facade looks amazing.
And I think
in model form.
Yeah, I don't really understand how they made it.
Is this project built? Or?
Yeah, this one has been built. I think it's from around 2011. So I'm really excited. In the fall, I'm actually presenting at a conference in the building in Iceland.
Oh wow!
So that'll be nice to have a chance to see it
on the bucket list. So if I go there, I'll go check this building out.
So
I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen this one before. It looks very cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a trip to Reykjavik just to see it.
Yeah.
part of our materials that we really want to kind of collect as many materials that we can. So we have these physical samples in the office, and also try and keep this organized in some way.
Again, this is one of the more organized ones
I think
we've seen, I think.
And I think when you have a materials expert in the office, then it really helps out to keep the library organized.
Yeah, this is quite funky.
Yeah, this is really some nice materials. I think this is made out of waste aluminum, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Let's take off this top layer.
Oh,
It's really nice.
very cool.
But it's also nice that's aluminum because it weighs just nothing.
Yeah, it weighs
looks like it could be a heavy
Looks
plate.
like very space age.
Yeah, I think that one of the challenges we have here is there's not enough wall space. Everybody wants a wall to pin up their drawings and their work.
That's actually one of the things we keep hearing is like more pin-up space or whiteboards. We haven't seen a lot of whiteboards going around offices, but I think they're...
Yeah, I think that's actually one thing I miss is a nice whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's something where you can draw and talk at the same time.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
And then,
whiteboards, you need to get them.
And then also, you kind of get that collaborative dialogue on a whiteboard.
Yeah,
When you're sitting working on a table, it's more sketching in isolation. But when you have a whiteboard, it really is kind of sketching together.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've seen maybe one whiteboard. But yeah, I totally agree. It's like a really nice way to think.
Yeah, if you go out to Ramble, they have whiteboards everywhere, but they're also engineers.
Engineers, yeah, they know how it goes.
Yeah, this is a courthouse in Malmö. It's just a town right on the other side of the bridge.
You mean it's in Sweden?
It's in Sweden.
How do you pronounce
Malmö.
Mal? I call it Malmo in English.
Yeah.
With my accent. Okay.
So this is a project we did the design work, and then there was a Swedish office that took it the rest of the way.
And you're saying it's courthouses, right?
Yeah, this is a courthouse. So we've actually done several courthouses recently. We also did another courthouse out in Norrhavn.
Yeah.
So you can see that one as well. It's the one of the Österlandsrat, which is the kind of the eastern courthouse.
Was the building made with timber or anything, or was the models just in timber? But was the...
No, I think the model's just in timber, and I actually don't know what the final material was for the building.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be an aluminum and glass facade.
Okay.
On this roof garden, we have like an outdoor garden where they actually harvest some of the food for the canteen.
No way.
And we've had our own bees.
That's really cool that you guys experimented with growing your own food and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it really fits into that sustainability profile we really want to live and to work with.
You're talking the talk, but you're walking the walk. I like it.
And like we've also done some samples up here. Like here we have a sedum roof.
Yeah.
And then we've also done like different wall systems where we would actually have a one-to-one mock-up here up on the roof attached to the drainage system to see how it works.
Oh, wow. So this looks like a canteen space. There's one question I have is, it seems to be like a culture in Denmark that you eat lunch in the office and they bring lunch in.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And
we actually experienced, there was a fish delivery as we came in of real fish. So it seems like you guys have like chefs and food. Talk to us about that culture.
Yeah, I think the culture is part of our collective agreement. Like at one point in time, the architectural union was really strong. So we actually have a paid lunch. And the idea is that you eat lunch in the office. The lunch is only 29 minutes, not a full half hour. And because you're in the office, that you can take phone calls and you can talk to people in the office. And I think it's really created that kind of culture of being together and eating together.
Yeah.
So people don't go out of the office.
Yeah.
A few people might bring their own lunch. If they bring their own lunch, they still eat up here with everybody else.
Yeah, that's really nice because you've got like, a bit more of a community feel. Also saves on time. You have to go out, find somewhere to eat.
Yeah.
Every day there's something different, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And the food is good. And it's like, I'm American. When I was working in the US, everybody just ate at their desk.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get that break and step away from your desk, step away from what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you can take a phone call, but just get to talk to other people in the office and just take a break.
Yeah.
It's really worth it.
I guess this won't be the first canteen you see.
You'll see this in every office.
It's really cool.
And if they don't have a kitchen making the food, then they order the food delivered from outside.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's a really nice concept.
I think this is it's a unique thing to Denmark.
Yeah.
Like Big did it in the New York office, and I was like, this is very strange. But then they were like, oh yeah, it's kind of like quite a Danish thing.
Mm. And then we also, we pay for part of the lunch, and then the office also pays for part.
Yeah, that's cool. So this is
Yeah, these are the tops of the skylights.
Yeah. And so you got this kind of green roof.
Yeah.
What did you call it again?
It's called sedum.
Sedum.
It's just like small plants that grow in the roof. It's a special construction system, which is actually really common in Denmark now.
I'm curious what this is. This the nail game?
Yeah, we have a Friday
Is this
bar.
a Danish thing as well?
Yeah, that I can't answer. If it's a Danish thing or not.
This is how they let loose.
I think it's like a Viking thing to show your strength. Thor's hammer.
That's cool.
To the right over here we have the Carlsberg booth.
Yeah,
That's where the old Carlsberg brewery used to be, and now it's become residential offices, some hotels. And the one tower crane to the left, that's actually one of our projects that we're building.
Oh, wow.
So we're building a partially low-rise, partially high-rise residential and mixed use.
Yeah. And then that way you've sort of got central Copenhagen.
Here we're looking towards downtown, so we can see a little bit of Tivoli. We can see a little bit of some Lundgaard Tonneberg projects over at the post office ground.
Yeah.
This is like really nice in the summer.
Yeah.
Some Friday bars up here.
Friday bar situation, unwind.
Yeah. So it's really nice just to get out.
I like the clock.
Yeah, the clock is
not
really
correct,
nice,
though.
but it's only right twice a day. It hasn't worked for a while.
What is Fotex?
Fotex is the supermarket down on the ground floor.
Ah, okay. It's quite an interesting Art Deco-y building, would you say?
Yeah, or it's kind of early, a little bit modernist, maybe.
Yeah. I like the little mini balconies up the court.
Yeah, I think it's a nice building. If you go to the Architecture Museum, you can see the model of this. It's huge, just the timber construction in the model.
Right.
So this just opened last weekend, I believe.
The actual Volvo.
The actual building just opened. So it's like a museum for Volvo.
Yeah. And in Sweden?
Yeah, it's in Gothenburg.
And so the model is in that, what's it called? Blocks.
Danish Architecture Center in
DAC,
blocks.
Yeah. DAC blocks, yeah.
So
which was designed by OMA, right?
Yeah.
Very Henning Larsen-esque.
Yeah, and I think this is also a really good example of computational design in the office, because actually we did, the structure is driven by a dynamograph, and the same dynamograph was handed over to the fabricator to fabricate the elements as well.
Really cool.
So it's kind of
Assuming like all
scripting
these
from
beams was kind of CNC'd.
Yeah, it's really an amazing structure. So this is actually a tiny model of a really large project. You'll see it when you go out to Nordhavn. So this model here is the large-scale timber construction, or hybrid timber construction that we're working on right now. So they've started building from this end, and they're working down towards the lower end. So when you go out here, you can see the large portion of the building, and you can look in behind the plastic and see the timber construction.
We're staying there, so we'll try and sneak some shots in there.
Yeah, it's really a nice project.
Yeah, great.
And I think this is actually a pretty good example of what you can do with the 3D printer.
Yeah.
It's like you can really get into the small details of the chairs and the facade.
Well, the chairs are amazing, actually.
So it really kind of gives that extra level of detail into the projects.
Yeah.
So this is actually a church up in Skanderborg, outside of Aarhus. And it's I think the first new church there for 600 years.
Wow. That's a record.
Yeah. And I think after we won this competition for this project, we're also doing another church out in Ørestad.
Yeah. It's a really interesting design.
Yeah.
Across on the floor and the chairs and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like a modern conception of the church.
We haven't seen a lot of churches on our tours yet, so I think this is our first church.
Yeah, my name is David Fink. I'm the digital manager at Henning Larsen in Copenhagen.
Okay, David, thank you very much for the tour. It's super interesting to see the amazing space you guys have here.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about some technology. That's why we're here. Maybe just give us a bit of a broad overview of your design technology team or digital technology team. I'm not sure how you call it exactly. In Henning Larsen, like what disciplines do you cover? Do you have other teams you work with? And also, how do you work on a day-to-day basis with the teams?
Yeah. So the way we work is we have our own small department within the office, which is computational design and sustainability. And we support pretty much all of the projects in the office in one way or another. We can either give them sustainability support, running analysis on the different projects and the design proposals they have. We can also develop computational design scripts to help them kind of accelerate the design process and develop new design that maybe they wouldn't have initially come up with, and also ways to kind of control the design in different ways. So I think we can affect the office in lots of different ways. I focus mostly on our BIM workflows, and at Henning Larsen we do all of our projects with some sort of BIM, whether it's required by the client or not.
Yeah.
So everything is modeled in 3D, and we try to associate data to the projects, and then also use this to coordinate the projects as well.
I'm guessing that involves a bit of Rhino inside going back and forth between BIM and computation. But
yeah, we haven't used much Rhino inside, but we're trying to find the best possible workflow between the two. We just haven't found that silver bullet yet.
Yeah. See the speckle or...
Yeah, there's so many different options out there right now. We have Speckle, we have Beam, we're trying the Autodesk data connectors. We're a little bit of Rhino inside, and we're really trying to find what is the best flow of going back and forth between the two tools. Because we think.
And also, how are you working with the teams? Like, do the teams come and tap you on the shoulder and say, "I have a problem with the script," or do your team members get assigned to a project? How does it work?
As far as sustainability, they're assigned to a project.
Okay.
And then I have also the role of supporting the project. So it's usually they tap me on the shoulder and it's like, oh, we need support doing this, or we need a better workflow for doing that. And I try and come into some of the projects and help them out and try and resolve some of the issues and try and improve some of the workflows that they have.
So this is not a trick question. We ask everyone this, but just give us a broad overview of the software that people are using in the background. Like, is it Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper? Like, what do people use here at Henning Larsen? Yeah,
at Henning Larsen, we are primarily a Rhino Revit office. Yeah. We do our sketching in Rhino, and when the geometry and the project becomes more solidified, then we move to Revit. And then, of course, these two tools can't do everything. So we have a whole ecosystem of tools we use to support them. And in the early stages in Rhino, we do a lot of Grasshopper work. In the later stages, we do a lot of Dynamo. And then on top of that, there's also lots of specialty tools to support this workflow.
What about, do you guys have like a particular Viz tool, like an Enscape or Twinmotion, or like for day-to-day stuff? Yeah,
the tool of choice seems to be Enscape.
Yeah.
We have access to Twinmotion, and we've tried other products as well, but I think everybody is addicted to their Enscape.
Yeah, so Enscape.
So I don't see us changing right now. I think that we have a tool that works and it fits into our workflows, so we'll probably stick with that for now. Because I think when we talk about software, this is not an easy thing, because we also kind of see the tools that people use as the way that architects have traditionally used pencils and pens, that every architect has their tool of choice. And it's difficult to change that. So of course we can't take the tools away, but we just have to augment it and provide for that as part of our process. And then on top of that, at Henning Larsen, we're part of Ramble, which is a much larger engineering company. There are 18,000 people globally. And we've just done a huge cleanup of the software portfolio. There was almost one piece of software for every person in the company 2 years ago when we started this process. And it just makes you realize how complex and how big the software issue is. So we've gone from around 14,000 pieces of software in the company to around 4,000 pieces of software in around 2 years.
Wow.
And this has just been a huge cleanup, and it's been really complex. Some people have been upset about the tools we had to take away. But I think this will just benefit everybody in the end, is having this more streamlined ecosystem of tools that we use.
That's incredible. 1,400.
14,000.
14,000. Wow. Yeah, I'm a little bit speechless. I think that's always one of the challenges at these bigger firms is, you know, on one hand you want to let people use whatever they want to use, but on the other hand you've got to manage all these licenses and the cost of licenses and things like that, right?
Yeah, there's the cost of licenses, the cost of support, and the cybersecurity risk of having so many pieces of software.
But yeah, I'm blown away by that number. I mean, it really shows how fragmented our software side is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's also because the company has just been going and going and going, and nobody's ever taken a look to see what's out there.
Wow.
And I think it's also that 14,000 was only the software that they could identify. There's still a lot of software that's installed in computers that nobody knows about.
Yeah, all the plugins and all that kind of stuff. We've touched on it a little bit, but I can see, obviously at Henning Larsen, you're using a lot of computational design. You build a lot of stuff, so you're using BIM. We touched on it a bit, but how does, firstly, the computational team and the BIM team or specialists work together, and how do you kind of manage those two worlds between computation and BIM?
Yeah, I think that they kind of go hand in hand. We can say that we use the computational design as more of the tools we use as part of the design process. Yeah. And then on the other hand, we have BIM, which we also describe as a process. It's about delivering these data-rich models and then using them for coordination and going out into the field. So the two go hand in hand. We use computational design more in the early design phases, and then BIM in the later phases.
How does you were saying something about, like, you have BIM leads or managers on each project, right? So they're distributed there, and then you have the computational team. Yeah, how does the BIM team work a little bit in the office?
So in the office, we have multiple projects running at the same time. So on each project, after it goes into production, and actually a little bit before, we assign a BIM manager to the project. Right. And they're responsible for the ICT agreement, enforcing that on the project, and delivering the right deliverables. So they manage the models, they ensure the deliverables are correct, and they ensure that the data is consistent in the projects we deliver, as well as help with the coordination of the models.
Cool. Also, is there any I know we touched on it a bit already, but, like, is there any particular tools that you guys are using to manage that world from Rhino into Revit? I know you mentioned Dynamo, for example.
Yeah, I think that right now we're still doing that exploration of how we model this or manage this from the design phases into production. Yeah. And I think that one thing that we see is these cloud-based tools like Speckle and the construction cloud is kind of the direction we want to take. Yeah. So rather than going from file to file, we're going from platform to cloud to platform, because we can really see the benefits in that it really opens up the possibilities of moving data and geometry across these different tools that we use, as well as having that version control within the cloud.
Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about computational design and also sustainability, which seems like a big theme. Where do you see, like, computational design, what is the relationship between computation and the sustainability simulation side of things? Mm-hmm.
I think what we can see is we have these simulations that we run on the projects. We get data back, and then we can also use that data to help generate the design proposals. Right. So it's not just using computational design in isolation, but using computation design with the data that we get from the analysis and the simulations we run. Yeah. So we can use that to kind of impact the design and develop the best possible solutions. But of course, we need to have the human touch on that to go through and refine those solutions to be an actual architectural solution.
Yeah. So that kind of iterative process through, I'm assuming you're analyzing it with maybe Ladybug or Honeybee, and then it feeds back into the design, the dream kind of workflow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we run these simulations to help influence the design and also find out what is working. And we also do a lot of microclimate on the sites that we have to try and find out where we can position different parts of the building programs on the site.
Is it, in terms of computation, is there any other kind of big parts of the office that utilize computation, whether it's just simply automating things or simulation, data-driven design. Is there any other big impacts you have with computation you see in the office?
Yeah, I think when we see this computational design in the office, I see that it's a way of getting people to think also in a new way, like think in a computational way.
Thinking computation, yeah.
So it's no longer just kind of rule of thumb or what we've done in the past, but it's kind of saying, okay, let's take a look at this project in a computational way and find out if there's other solutions available that we can work on. And I think that's kind of the big step, is changing that mindset from what we've done in the past to using the tools to help us start at a higher level than we've started before.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is there something, do you teach that in the office, like teaching computational design thinking, or like, Grasshopper 101s in the office?
Yeah, I think we would love to teach classes like that, but it really comes down to time and the resources to do it. It takes a lot of effort to put together a Grasshopper class internally, and I've tried it before with other classes, but it really takes a lot of effort and time to put this together, and as well as people in the office are busy in trying to find what's the best points in time.
It's always a challenge to kind of, upskill the team and get that across. But I think your point on changing your mindset to this computational thinking really helps the project as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I've seen you've been working with kind of gamification of sustainability tools, LCA tools. It seems you have an interest in digital twins, the magical term of digital twins.
Yeah.
How is game engines and gamification kind of being used in your team on the sustainability side, but also on the wider office?
Yeah. I think we see this gamification of getting the tools we use out of the software that we use for design. Yeah. And this gamification is a way of making it more available for the layman, for people who are not the designers and the architects and the people who know how to work the software. We've just developed a tool called Urban Decarb, which is basically a platform for estimating carbon on a holistic level. So it's not only buildings in isolation, but the landscape and in the urban context as well. So it takes into account the building fabric, the energy used by the buildings, the transportation of the people who live in that area, and their consumption habits. And we took all of this together and put it into a viewer, so you can actually navigate around and click on the individual parts of the buildings and the landscape to see the carbon intensity of those uses and the buildings that are in that urban design.
Wow, yeah, that's a big challenge. We find that everyone right now is building an LCA tool, but I think when I saw what you guys were doing, it seems really advanced and also quite fun and playful to do.
Yeah, and I think it really is like, how do you bring this very complex topic and simplify it so people can understand what the impacts are on a design?
How do people use it in the office? Do they go to you guys that load it into this environment and they use it to present? Like how do teams work with it?
Yeah, right now it requires lots of setup. So the team will come to us, we'll help them get it into the tool, and then they can use it as a design tool to test different proposals that they have.
Of course, we have been asking everyone, of course, the topic at the moment of AI. Are you guys experimenting with AI? How have you implemented it in the office? Yeah, what's your thoughts on AI right now?
Yeah, I think AI is the future, and it's like how we can use this. It just seems like there's infinite possibilities right now. I think at Henning Larsen we've done like everybody else, trying to use it for renderings and visualizations. But then also we can see that if we use this for renderings and visualizations and use these public AIs, that probably all the projects will end up looking the same. So how can we develop a Henning Larsen AI? How can we train the models on Henning Larsen projects so we can have a Henning Larsen touch when we do these visualizations of the projects?
Yeah. So training your own models or refining your own models.
Yeah, I think it's refining them. Like we could come up with the concept and then feed it through the AI to develop design proposals that we can refine further. So we kind of see it as another tool in our tool chest of helping us design better projects faster.
Yeah. Have you seen like a particular attraction to, for example, diffusion, like Midjourney or Stable versus like large language models like ChatGPT? Are you seeing like a particular adoption of one particular type?
Yeah, I think that we have it in two directions. We have a lot of people who are using Midjourney as part of the renderings and playing with that. And then on the other side, we're experimenting with large language models. We have Ramble, who's generated their own RAM GPT, which we can use internally. And this is a benefit that you can feed project-specific documents into it and not worried about being exposed. And at the same time, we're also working with Copilot, see how that can optimize our workflows and see how you can save time with that. And I think between those two tools, as far as documenting and generating data, it's really a huge asset that you can go through a email thread and just quickly get a summary, or meeting minutes from a Teams meeting instantly. And it's just a huge benefit. And all that time we could be using on more interesting tasks, because we are designers. We'd much rather be doing design work or developing computational design scripts as well.
Yeah, that is a common theme that we're trying to illustrate to the audience, that sometimes this is just about automating some of the boring stuff so that we can spend more time in the design process where you add value.
And I think that's exactly it. It's just automating the boring stuff.
Yeah.
And we would love to take it even further. Like, can we develop all of our production documentation with AI?
Yeah.
Take all that time we use on production documentation, which is huge, and move that into the design phase so we're delivering better projects faster.
We saw a bunch of 3D printing samples over there. Talk to us about digital fabrication. How does that play a role in your team and in the office right now?
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of interest in digital fabrication, because we know that prefabrication that delivers higher quality products with less waste, which means it's less carbon, and we can also come to site faster and finish projects faster. And I think one example or two examples is the 3D printing. And I think that right now we have an industrial PhD that's exploring the possibilities of 3D printing and how we can use that as part of our design processes. And then at the same time, there's the World of Volvo project I showed you earlier, which was basically a project that was scripted in Grasshopper, and that script was carried through fabrication. So all of the timber elements, they were constructed based on the Grasshopper script.
Yeah, so it's going direct from design to fabrication, which again is the dream process.
It's that flow of moving completely through the entire project life cycle.
Yeah. Is there a particular type of fabrication you're excited about, like 3D printing versus, that was a bit more, I guess, mass timber, CNC you could call it. Is there a particular one you're excited about?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about the timber construction.
Yeah.
Because I really can see the possibilities in that. And it's no longer just like beams and columns. We're doing more complex forms and complex geometries out of timber as well. And I think that you can also see the speed of fabrication with timber elements is also huge, because they're easy to work with on site. They don't weigh as much. They don't require diamond drills to drill holes through them. And there's just that extra level of flexibility and the kind of the feeling that you get from a timber construction.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a timber nerd as well. And I think there's a lot of FOMO about 3D printing, but I think the real advancement is more on the timber side right now.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think 3D printing is interesting, but I think the timber is where the possibilities are.
Of course, part of this tour is to give young architects a view into the tech teams behind the scenes, but what advice would you have for young architects in this day and age if they want to come one day work in your team or get into computational design? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice I would give them is learn to code a little bit. You don't need to be an expert coder, but if you can kind of dip your toes into using Dynamo and Grasshopper and maybe a little bit of Python, you can really go a long ways. And I think you'll really be in demand in the office. And I think it's great to learn the tools, but you also need to learn the processes behind the tools as well. So a lot of people can use the tools, but if you know how to apply the tools into a project and get good results, that's also a huge benefit coming out of school.
Yeah, and develop that computational thinking, which I think just complements the design process as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you can think in a computational way, then that's also a huge asset, because everybody's looking for computational designers right now.
Yeah, in demand.
Yeah.
2024, a lot going on. We asked this to everyone, but with AI going on, game engines, 3D printing. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about on the horizon of 2024?
I think one of my huge interests is digital twins.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'd really like to put a lot of effort into. And I think over time we've come from like a hand drawing to CAD to BIM, but then when we make this handover to a client, we're handing over PDFs and 2D documentation. And I kind of feel that if instead of all of this fragmented documentation, that we can hand over a digital twin to a client so they can have all of the data of their project, all of the plans and information compiled in a single database or a single piece of software that they can access all of that in real time. And then on top of that, if you can apply sensor data and get real-time feedback, and you can really learn how to make this link between the physical and digital worlds, I think that it can have a huge benefit for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, the digital twin one is a super interesting one. I mean, I know you guys have been experimenting with it at the moment, but do you see a particular platform or software? There isn't one that exists right now, but there's ones that are close. For example, you could describe that as like a super BIM model, a very good Revit model. We've also seen people experimenting with Unreal Game Engine and putting it all into the environment. The Omniverse is another one to throw in the mix. Is there one that you kind of see standing out or interests you the most?
I think for an ease of getting into the digital twin, I see that Tandem is a product.
Tandem?
That really seems flexible, and you have the ability of putting your models, the information about the assets, and now you can also put the sensors into that as well.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten into the sensor part of it, but it seems like it's fairly intuitive and easy to use. Whereas when we start to talk about the Unreal Engine, we're pretty much building a solution from the bottom up for our clients. Yeah. So I think as far as an ease of entry, probably Tandem, but I can see as far as flexibility and kind of making these custom digital twins for clients, and you're probably talking about Unreal Engine or Unity or something with a gaming engine.
Yeah.
But it has to be some kind of platform that's easily accessible. It can't be a closed system like Rhino or Revit or other CAD platforms. It has to be something that's easily usable by the client, something they don't need to pay for huge licensing fees. And I think it just has to be available for them. And I think also as an architect, we see this as a way of also offering additional services, because the digital twin has to be maintained. And then maybe in the future we can have some kind of subscription service where we come in and we update the digital twin on a yearly basis or bi-yearly basis.
Right.
So it's another way of earning money.
Yeah, which we often don't think about so much as as architects, right? That's really interesting. Would you also describe it, you're using a digital twin in phases, like there's the digital twin of design phases, the documentation phases, and then the actual building life cycle, right?
Yeah, I think that we can see with digital twin, you have to start early with it. It's not something you can finish the project and say, okay, now we're going to have a digital twin. It's something that you need to plan into the process. And we can have these different types of digital twins, like we can have in the early phases, like a prototyping, and running these simulations on the digital model where we don't have the physical asset, and then carrying that through the entire life cycle of the project, and then somehow linking that 3D model up to the actual asset that has been finished. Yeah. So it's starting early and carrying it through, even though you don't have that physical asset to link it to in the end.
Yeah. Cool. So the future of digital twins.
Yeah, I think it's a reality. We just need to find out how we can sell this as a service and convince clients it's something they need.
My name is Ashkan. I'm a computational designer at Henning Larsen.
Maybe give us a bit of a idea of your background, so like how you got into computation. Did you study a special master's or did you train as an architect? Like, give us a bit about your background.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a trained architect. I did my master's in Aarhus. I did my bachelor's in my country. It was my bachelor's was mostly about like architecture engineering, all the like traditional way of studying architecture, but I was also into using Grasshopper. Like back in this was a big thing, like to learn. But it was a big thing amongst students or teachers who are really fond of computers in general. Yeah. But I found my way to my master's to be part of this studio in a architecture school in Aarhus. It was mostly about fabrication, computational design, like using digital tools in general, like heavily focusing on fabrication, casting, CNC milling, and different kinds of 3D printing. And I kind of educated myself during the process as well to become more literate in like digital world. And I think it was 2 years ago I had this like opportunity to join Henning Larsen and kind of expanding also my expertise, not only on the fabrication and computational design tools, but also like CFD modeling and environmental analysis and so on. And recently with all this software developer kind of like an environment with like web apps and databases and so on, how we can connect it to our current workflow and current environments, which is mostly like Rhino, Revit, and like everything that you already know.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but what is your role here at Henning Larsen? Like, do you focus on geometry, computational design? Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about simulation already. You're also like a bit of a tool builder from what we discussed. Like, what is your role a little bit?
So our department is research and innovation, or research and development, and we basically also the one of the main focus is sustainability. So what we're talking about is about how we can make things better in terms of sustainability, climate change, and so on. So I started doing a lot of environmental analysis like safety modeling, thermal comfort, indoor comfort, and so on. And then with all the research projects we have and all sort of requirements for different projects, we get into more granular way of working with like specific things, like if it's like certifications, if it's transformation, or like recently we've been working on different use of LLM models in our workflow. So it's very fluid, I would say, but it's mostly focusing on how we can kind of harness the power of everything into our current workflow through the geometries, basically. So everything that we do, at the end, we need to kind of attach it, embed it in this geometrical environment. Yeah. I know it was very vague, but I hope I can give you more details when it comes to.
Maybe talk about what are the kind of computational tools you use for that? Is it Grasshopper, Ladybug, Honeybee, or is it like what kind of tools do you use for all this analysis and the stuff you do?
We use a lot of open source tools. Like for safety modeling, we use OpenFOAM. We kind of working with a university project working on OpenLB. There's a lot of Ladybug tools, like also commercial tools. We try them, Climb Studio, and all like other tools as well. But also recently we've been also creating our own tools, like based on different libraries available. We are trying to make things faster, kind of migrating from the time that we used to run all the simulations for different purposes, and it took a couple of days or even a couple of hours. We wanted to get closer to this real time era, so we don't need to kind of wait until we see the results and get this conversation going with our colleagues. But we, like in real time, we can have this conversation over a model or something. So that's why we started creating our own tools for same and different purposes, same purposes we used to use them, like for the traditional analysis. Now we can call them traditional. They weren't traditional back in days, was like very, very cutting edge, but also we're trying to add more values and trying to figure out how we can kind of perceive different ideas about like social sustainability, thermal comfort, but within different area of the different geographic like location in the world. Because we kind of whatever we do, whatever tool we create, we also care about the nuances behind it. Sometimes like things can get lost within all this digital tools, so that's why we also want to know what happens behind the scene. That's why we're interested in creating our own tools as well.
Thank you guys for joining us once again on our ArchiTech tours. This was a super interesting one, a really famous Danish firm. A big thank you to David and his team for showing us around some really interesting stuff they work on, particularly in this world of sustainability. As always though, if you like this episode, give us a like and a subscribe. The more people that join us, the more companies that we can get into and show you guys around. So thank you for your support so far. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.